Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Soul Goals Podcast. I'm Dawn, and I'm so glad you're joining me today. This podcast is dedicated to bringing people's stories to light and hearing their journeys of inspiration and self-growth. But it's also about connection and knowing that you are not alone. Each week, I get the chance to sit down and talk with an amazing soul, someone I've had the blessing of either meeting or following in my life. I am so grateful for my guests. Their openness and their vulnerability, it is unmatched as we share heartfelt conversations together about both their challenges and their triumphs. I hope that you can grab some inspiration and connection from my guests and their stories. I know I certainly have with each conversation. What an honor to sit with these brave souls. Everyone has a story, folks. And every story matters. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Soul Goals. I am Dawn, and today I get to speak with an amazing soul, just like every week. But this amazing soul is one specifically that I adore because she's had a hand in helping raise my kids, if you will, kind of along the high school route. Oh, look at your little face. Just went like, oh.
Sweet. I know.
It's true. Coach Kyle Feldman, which we like to call her Coach K around these neck of the woods, hails from Brooklyn, New York, via Boulder, Colorado, via a lot of other places along the way, all along that Western seaboard, which we'll get into that later. But she is a strength and conditioning coach at Father Ryan High School here in the Nashville, Tennessee area. That's where my kids got to know her. My oldest daughter got to train with her. I think actually you took the job when my older daughter, who's now a junior in college, was either a freshman or a sophomore. Yeah. So and then my younger daughter is a junior in high school. So she's had the privilege of getting all 4 years to get her ready for her college exposure in her sport.
Crazy.
So yeah, it's so nuts. Time passes fast around these neck of the woods. Yeah. But let me tell you guys about Coach K just a little bit. Strength and conditioning coach extraordinaire, no small feat. She's going to blush as if you're watching this. You're going to see her little cheeks just light up. But this is such a big accolade. Kylie was voted NHS, it's National High School Southeast Region Coach of the Year for the year 2023. Guys, that's a big deal. Like, that's a really big deal. She knows her stuff. She comes with an extensive background. And I think when I found this out, was one of the coolest things that I didn't know about you initially when we started talking about doing this podcast, was that you were a dancer at Colorado State University for 3 years. Like, I look at you and I talk to you and I'm like, she knows so much about the human body and human performance and sport performance. And I mean, dancing, that's a sport to me. I know that, but
it's athletic.
Yeah, it's super athletic, but I would have never penned you as a dancer.
Because I'm on my third life now.
Okay.
That was my first. Yeah.
I'll take that. Well, without further ado, guys, welcome to the show, Coach K, Kyle Feldman.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I really appreciate this chance to talk to you again and get to know you even better.
Absolutely. We're laughing because we've had some snafus on our our recording the last couple of times that we've done it. So here we are, and we're going to make it happen today, and it's going to be amazing. Yeah. So I'm interested to know a little bit about your journey. I think, again, intriguing to me is that you were a dancer at Colorado State University, like I just said, but that you're from Brooklyn?
Yeah.
Okay, so your accent gives it away right there.
It does. If I'm tired or I'm mad or I'm pissed off, I mean, it comes out really bad. I'll start talking like this. All the athletes know when that accent comes out, we're on. It's not a good. It's going to come down the pipeline if this accent is really, really hardcore.
Oh my gosh. Do you think that, okay, so you're growing up in the Brooklyn area. Like, do you think that kind of created an edge for you to be like, because I look at you as this very empowered individual and this very go-getter, no nonsense kind of person. And I know your parents, you've said, were both in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
But so you've been kind of around You've been around the block in a lot of different things. But I will say, but I'm going to say, well, you already just said it's your third lifetime.
No, you're right. I get it. It's
But
so accurate. I've been around a lot of blocks. Not of
you're
corners.
like, if your name was Jenny, I would call you Jenny on the block, just like J-Lo, right? And I can say, I can really vouch for all of that third life kind of stuff because I'm like right there in your age demographic. We're peas in a
Right.
pod. Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
And you were in the music business,
Yep.
you're a mom, you're a podcaster now. So, you've had, different paths, life paths, if you will. So,
I've been around the block. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, tell me a little bit about how you ended up going to Colorado from Brooklyn and what you did.
yeah.
Like, you left Brooklyn before you graduated from high school. So I know that was
Yes.
a weird transition for you. To give me a little bit about how all that went down.
Okay. So, the part of me being an empowered, alpha female and stuff is completely tied to where I was brought up.
Okay.
My family, like you mentioned, was in the music business. My dad was in a group in the 60s. He was a publisher and a writer and a singer, and he was part of a band. And my mom was Natalie Cole's road manager and worked for Polydor Records.
Which is way cool. Just gonna put that right out there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was brought up around adults, and I
Mhm.
was also brought up during a time of, disco, and you grow up really fast
Yeah.
in New York. Like, we were considered latchkey kids. They call them free range kids now.
What?
Yeah,
What? Wait, hold on. Free range kids? That's what
yeah,
they're
it's a
called?
term. Well, about a year ago, I was reading this article, and it was about how this 10 and this 8-year-old sisters were walking hand in hand down a street, coming from a park, going home, and somebody pulled them over and called like the police and child services,
Oh, okay.
and they were calling them free range kids. And I'm like, that used to be the norm, where kids were just all around the neighborhood, just
Yeah.
without without adults, and just walking around, and growing up. That's the way we were. We were, my sister and I, like 5, 6, 7, 8, crossing major roads on our own.
Yeah.
Both my parents worked, and so you come home and you're the only one there. I mean, it wasn't uncommon for like me and my friends.
Right.
I lived in Brighton Beach, right on the borderline of Manhattan Beach and Brighton Beach. And if
Okay.
you went, we lived about 1,000 yards off of Brighton Beach,
Mhm.
Bay One, where the Atlantic Ocean is. Like, it's called bays.
Okay.
So if Coney Island is like Bay 22 or 23, and it's separated by like these rocks, we lived on Bay One at the very beginning of the boardwalk.
Okay. Okay. That's
So
good to know. That's really information that I had no idea. That's interesting to know. Okay.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
separated by base.
So we were brought up on a beach, and
Yeah.
when I was young, there wasn't a lot of supervision.
Uh-huh.
And it was the 70s.
Yeah.
I could easily say any artist's children know exactly what that growing up entails. You're
Yeah.
around adults all the time. You're in
Mm.
studios 2, 3 in the morning.
Mhm.
We traveled in a motorhome for the first 5 years, just doing different stuff.
Right.
I didn't go to, I went to school in kindergarten, but by the time I got there, I know our teacher spoke to my parents and said, they thought I was autistic because I would sit there and look out the window,
Oh,
and I
wow.
wasn't really engaging with other kids. And the bottom line was, I didn't know how to be around kids my age,
Right. Yeah, that was
because
my
we
first
were,
thought.
yeah, it was such a different world,
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my first earliest memories is with my mom.
Mhm.
And I have a funny story about this, but it was
Okay.
in an alley in New York,
Okay.
helping Natalie Cole get her into a cab and sober her up for a concert.
Oh my God. How old were you?
I was around 5 or 6. Now,
Whoa.
here's where this great story makes a full circle.
Okay.
I am a strength coach at the University of Washington, and we're going to just veer off the highway, but it'll come
All good.
circular back around.
Sure.
And this was back between 97 and 99. And she was doing a show at a vineyard not too far from my house.
Okay.
Now, my mom passed away when I was 21. I was in my mid 30s at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, late 20s, early. Yeah, I was like 28, 29, about to turn 30.
Okay.
Really missing my mom. It had only been 5 or 6 years, since she had passed. I was kind of thinking, what was my mom like at my age? We're both adults now. And I wrote this letter to Natalie Cole.
Okay.
And it was a few pages long. And I was like, hey, I just wanted to tell you what my memory is. And wondering if you remembered that, if you remembered my mom, any information you could get about my mom, any stories you can share, I would really appreciate. So I drive down there and I didn't go in, but there was a security guard there. And I asked them if they could hand this letter to her management.
Okay.
See if they could get it to her, right? I wasn't real hyped on the fact. I'm sure it wasn't going to get there. And the next morning I get a call.
Okay.
She goes, this is Natalie Cole. And I'm like looking at my phone, like, seriously now.
Surprise.
And she's like, yeah. She goes, I read your letter. Oh. She goes, I need to first start by saying I'm sorry that that's part of your memory.
Oh, wow.
And we talked for like 40 minutes. It was a great conversation. She told me a little bit about my mom and gave me some insight. She said my mom was kind of an angry person sometimes and smoked a lot and, was kind of depressed and then kind of like really into the music, but she really helped my mom and they loved each other. And my mom was great at her job and she went above and beyond and all the things like, you would want to know about your mom as an adult.
Sure. Yeah.
But it explained some things about my mom, like my behavior growing up or that I was allowed to do growing up.
Okay.
So that was very insightful. She actually, she passed away years ago, but she had given me her phone number that if I ever got to California, she'd love to go to dinner.
Did you ever do that?
No, I didn't.
Man,
but
really?
Yeah.
What a really great gift though that she gave you. That seems such a great conversation you had with her.
It was a crazy conversation because I'm like, I'm really having this conversation. And then, once the superfluous. No, I can't even think of what's the word I'm looking for. Once that superficial stuff. Yes. I think I just created some words. That's great.
Okay, let's go.
Once that superficial stuff, was taken off the table and like now I'm just talking to somebody who's just like another person about their experience and what she remembered about that time and how, what was going on in her world. And it was nice to get to know her on a human level too.
Yeah. I think it's awesome and probably really, really good for her too, if we're being honest.
Yeah. Aww. Yeah, she didn't exactly remember much about that time, but she did remember those events.
Yeah. So your mom was working with her when you lived in Brooklyn?
Yes.
Okay. And then how did that transpire to you guys ending up in Colorado? Because for me, that's such a huge difference.
Yeah. So my mom was not only a really great businesswoman, she was a jack of all trades. She was also super creative. My dad had bought this building off of West End Avenue, and there were 3 shops in there. The one was an ice cream parlor, and you could have parties there. And there were, she made miniatures, and she did pottery, and you had all these kind of like little kid parties and stuff like that. Yeah. The middle store was a gift store that in the back on one wall, like this had T-shirts and it had all these, crazy gift ideas. But on the back wall, it had papers and pipes, things that it's called a head shop nowadays. But back,
Okay.
this was the 80s by then, late
Yes.
70s and 80s. You couldn't buy drugs there, but you could buy the stuff, the supplies.
The paraphernalia. Yeah.
Paraphernalia.
There we go.
There we go. And then the third part of the store was my dad's publishing company.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents were married for 3 years, divorced but living together for 17, separated for 3, and this was a part of the whole separation process.
Wow.
And then toward the end of her life, got back together for like 88, 90, 91. It's about 2.5 years. So
wow. Okay.
It was very tumultuous.
Yeah.
The best roadmap I can give you for my father's journey is sex, drugs, rock and roll, infidelities, magic, creative, addictive, and so my parents were separated, although my mom thought that they were working on it. My dad had some other things going on.
I gotcha.
And at this time, my mom was working for Canard Lines. She was working for the QE2. She was working for the captain of the boat, Captain Ian Borland.
Okay.
And she was also had a stint at CBS Fox Video.
Wow.
So there's you used to have VHS and like the covers for them. Well, the movie The Day After, she did the original artwork for. I'm telling you, she was amazing.
Well, jack of all trades, for sure.
Yeah.
Everything you've just described is so broad, but like super creative, but motivated. Very motivated.
So, the summer of 85, she walked in on my dad and someone, and this big blow up ensued. And I was 15. My sister was 18. And my mom's like, I'm not staying. And she got in touch with Robin Leach from The Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And
loved that show, by the way.
Yeah, we decided we were going to California. Within, I think, a month or 2, we were packed up and we were gone. My sister decided to stay with my dad, and I went with my mom.
Okay. Was that in the middle of a school year?
No, that was in the summer.
Okay.
I'll tell you right now, July 13th, 1985, we came over the mountains in Wyoming and went to Colorado. We went into Colorado, Live Aid Day, because I was listening to Duran Duran coming over the hill.
What?
I know.
Loved Duran Duran.
Oh my God.
Did you see the hearts go up when I did the love? Here, I do it again. Yeah. See what I'll do it again. There it is.
Okay. You're so smart.
Anyway. I just make the motions with my hands. I talk with my hands way too much. If you're not watching this, you should probably go on YouTube and watch at least the first 15, 20 minutes of our interview because it's really hilarious.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah. Just made the love sign with my hands, and up across the screen pop these sweet little hearts. Yeah. Okay.
Reason. Anyway, so
we are so squirrel. I love this. I was like squirrel here, squirrel there, but it's perfect.
Well, we're coming back because we were on our way to California. I'm actually going to stay linear as much as I can today.
Okay.
So my aunt and my cousin, my uncle lived in Colorado. It was my mom's younger sister. She has an older sister and a younger sister. And we stopped in Colorado to see my aunt and my cousin to spend a couple of weeks. And then we were going to California, and we never left Boulder.
Wow.
We got to Louisville for the summer. Like I said, July 13th, 1985. And my mom fell in love with the mountains, and my aunt and uncle had an electronics company there. And my mom wound up managing it with them and being the personnel manager. And that's how I got to Colorado. So I did almost 2 years of high school in Colorado.
But how, tenacious is a word that I think about when you talk about your mom, but I also think about spontaneous in the same vein. But I don't think of it in a negative connotation. It's it's like utilizing that spontaneity to work for her life. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she was in survival mode. I think she was in, I'm fed up and I need something new and I'm taking my kid with me. And, this was in 85.
Yeah.
Now, I was a goth kid in 85. I, hung out
Yeah.
in Washington Square Park. I would, my friends and I got on the train at midnight. I wouldn't recommend this.
Yeah.
If I had kids and my kids did half the stuff that I did, forget it. No,
Yeah.
no. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't change my upbringing for anything in the world because it's given me a lot of perspective. It's given me a lot of empathy. It's given me a lot of grace.
Yes.
But it was definitely a lot of trial, a lot of things that, in our past that we're not proud of.
Right.
When you come from an addiction family, there are things that, you are exposed to that I don't think anybody should.
Right.
And it's how you deal with it. And it's how, you internalize it. And they always say, as you grow up, you tend to get a little stunted at the trauma age that you experienced some major, life tribulations and things.
Yes.
And there's a lot in my everyday life that I still believe that I'm stunted back to that time because, we're in our 50s now.
Right.
And you always have to look back and be a little circumspect about, where you are, where you came from, how you got here. And out of every rough road that I've been on has led me to the blessing that I have right now.
Yeah.
And I am truly blessed with the job that I have and the community I have around me for work. And I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
it
I
was
think,
hard.
but I think too, if you talk about those places where the trauma kind of gets stuck and where we experience trauma is where we get stunted a lot of times, which then creates the stuff that we work through in therapy when we get old enough to understand it.
Facts.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's really interesting because you're talking about such a tumultuous time for you in your life, which encompassed a lot of change, a lot of movement for you in your teenage years. How interesting is it that you are, you're with teenagers every day? You get to impact teenagers every day.
Love it. Like I said, God has led me on this path here.
Yeah.
And I've been coaching since 1992 is when I did my graduate work. And I still talk to athletes that I worked with from there. I've been to weddings and births and funerals, and Facebook is a great tool for staying in touch with, other demographics.
Yes.
And Instagram and Twitter are great for the kids nowadays.
Right.
But I'm very blessed that a lot of my athletes and former athletes still want to talk to me, still reach out, still have me a part of their lives.
Oh, that's great.
Very few will ever call me Kylie. They just can't get it.
Coach K.
It's Coach K.
Yeah.
And I've been that since 92.
Oh, gosh. Well, so how did you get into coaching? Because you're in Colorado. You're
so here we
goth
go.
kid
Back
from
to
the city.
squirrel.
Let's swirl back. Yeah. Goth kid from the city moves to Boulder, Colorado.
So I went to the junior high school for the gifted and talented called Mark Twain.
In New York.
In Brooklyn.
Okay.
Right. And it's middle school. It's considered middle school, 7th through 9th grade.
Yes.
So at 9th grade, when you're supposed to be a freshman in high school, I was a senior in junior high.
Okay.
So this was again for the gifted and talented. We kind of thought it more about the Brooklyn annex. And this is the way we thought about it. It's not out there. It's not like set in stone. But Mark Twain was kind of a mini Fame High School because
yeah.
you had to audition, you had to take tests.
Yeah.
And when I was in 6th grade, always proving people wrong throughout the years, I wasn't autistic. I was just bored of kids my age because I wasn't around them. And then, we get to 6th grade and I was told I would never get into, Mark Twain because I didn't have what it takes. And
Wait,
so
who
again,
was telling you that, by the way?
huh?
Who was telling you those messages?
Teachers, the principal.
Wow.
And so I not only got in, but I had gotten in with honors.
Yeah.
And 7th and 8th grade years were extraordinarily tough.
Yeah.
By the 9th grade year with therapy, and I had to say 1984 was probably my best year ever. You're a senior, you're 9th grade, and we had dance shows and we had drama plays and but you had to audition. You could be in athletics, you could be science, you could be math, you could be dance. I mean, there were all these different talents.
Yeah.
And a lot of our kids in that school were artists, were dancers, were actors, were singers.
Yeah.
And not trying to name drop, but there's a choreographer with the last name Diorio.
Okay.
And his name is Tyson Diorio. He was a freshman when I was a senior, and he has gone on to be choreographer to the stars and the masses. He's amazing.
Oh, love it.
He's a great kid.
Yeah.
Anyway, so after I did a year of 10th grade, I did in Brooklyn, and it was another liberal arts school. So I was a dancer there. I choreographed. There were shows and things like that. And by then, I'm 14, 15. I've got the hair shaved on each side. I've got a blonde stripe. I got the cattails. I'm hanging out at Washington Square Park and Greenwich Village, and anybody who knows New York and knows Astor Place, and just where all the punks, hung out, and Canal Street, and just totally into that. And then I get plucked out of there and put in Louisville, Colorado. And that was a hard summer.
Well, I don't mean to laugh, but it's just, if I think about you and you telling that story about what you were and where you ended up.
Yeah.
What a huge turn.
Yeah. I was also, again, as a dancer growing up, I was also maybe 93 pounds.
Oh, tiny.
5'3". Yeah. Oh, I got down to 89. Like it was gross. It wasn't a good situation at all.
Yeah.
But again, you got to come out of that. So when we spend the whole summer in Louisville and in Boulder, there's this 5-bedroom house. And, I was working at Wendy's, and my mom was working with my aunt and uncle. And then like the following summer, I did data entry for them, but didn't know that there was a liberal arts high school in Boulder. So I go to the Jock High School in Boulder at Fairview. Okay. And I've got nothing in common with these kids. I've got, I'm talking with my hands. I got this really thick accent. I'm cursing all over the place. All these kids grew up in the small town together. They didn't know what to make of me.
Yeah.
And, one of the first few days of class, they put me in the middle of a room for one of my classes with this kid next to me from Arkansas, and with his Southern twang and with my Brooklyn accent. It was just months of people just asking us questions just to laugh at us, to listen to our accents and stuff like that. Yeah. But we became really good friends as a result. So, wasn't really, again, accepted. So you had a lot of, I did find a group of people that were amazing that, would accept me. It was very breakfast clubby. It was very, rockers and the kids that were in bands. And those were the kids I hung out with. Loved them.
How much did you miss being where you were?
Oh, I was angry. I was an
Okay.
angry teenager. Teenagers are angry anyway, but
Well,
I was
right.
really
Right.
angry,
Yeah.
you know? But those couple of years, my mom and I grew up together, and it was just the two
Mm.
of us, and we
Oh,
became soul sisters.
yeah.
And what she made and what I made, we put in the pot together. And, we didn't have much. Our first Christmas, we made these chocolate houses as gifts and things
Oh.
like that. Yeah, it was, we had a 5-bedroom house and we only had like a mattress and
Oh,
maybe
wow.
a couple of a couple pieces of furniture in the living room. And it was the best time, her and I.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't change that for the world.
Yeah.
And so, the my senior year, it got a little better.
Okay.
And there are, some people that I still to this day keep in touch with that are amazing humans.
Yeah.
Cindy and Claire will always be Sally. I mean, those, they'll always be some of my closest friends
Mhm.
for like high school. And on my 18th birthday, my mom and I sat there and she was like, "Did you ever think you'd get here?" And I was like, "No." And I'm like, "Well,
Like,
what do I
make it
do
to your
now?"
18th birthday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking back, there's a lot of at-risk behavior growing up
Uh,
in
mhm.
Coney Island / Brooklyn / Brighton Beach. You grew up
Mhm.
really, really young. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things that were going on. It was also the 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, the beach that I was brought up on was called Quaalude Beach. If that tells you anything, it was the 70s and 80s.
Right.
There's a lot there.
Right.
And it was in my household.
Right.
A lot of behavior that I look back on both my parents. You know, I've always been an anxious and panicky kid.
Mhm.
And I now recognize that my mom had that. So it is hereditary. And my dad with his addictive background,
Mhm.
some of the moves that he's made in his life. He recently passed in the end of August.
Mhm.
But what I learned um, when I graduated high school, and my mom and I are looking at each other and going like, "What now?" Okay, I guess everyone's going to college, so I applied to colleges.
Okay,
And
so you had no idea what you really wanted to do.
no, but what I could do was dance still, and I
Yeah.
love to dance.
Okay.
And so I got into CSU. I was waitlisted, and then I went to the admin and I sat in their office and had them get to know me, and
Yeah.
and I got in,
Oh,
and I was a dance major. And from 87, I have to stop saying and like, sorry.
it's okay.
From 87 to I think it was 90, they ended the dance program there, but they allowed everybody who was a dance major to finish. And then in 1991, they opened it back up.
Oh, wow. That's
But
crazy.
they had stopped our classes, um, and then allowed us to graduate.
Yeah.
But in '89, my mom, uh, she got lung cancer. She was
Mm,
diagnosed with lung cancer.
okay.
And so that was in '89. My sister moved back with us in '87, '88.
Okay, so she was with you for that time period
Yeah,
then.
yeah. I think it was a senior year in high
Mhm.
school. She came and stayed with us a while.
Okay.
And then my parents started talking again. And '87, '88, my parents got back together, bought a house
Mhm.
right along the foothills. It was called Triathlon Lane. And it was bucked up in Boulder against the foothills. It was
Okay.
amazing. I loved that place.
Oh,
And '89, she was diagnosed. '91, she died.
yeah.
So
And you
actually,
were in
January,
college. What year were you in college?
my first, my second junior year, my first senior year.
Okay. Okay, hold on. Because like I'm going on like the COVID stuff, like how many multiple years that people have in school, right? And how much eligibility they have right now. It's kind of a strange thing. So tell what your
So
elaborate.
I got there in 87, 88, 89, 90, 91. So it would have been my senior year.
Okay.
However, with her being sick on and off, and she passed away in January 31st, actually in a week and a half, is her death date in 91. And I drove back the night she died. I left the hospital while my sister was still flying in and drove back to school. And then my cousin and his wife at the time drove up to come bring me back.
Okay.
And that 6 months, I don't really remember a whole heck of a lot because I was just on such autopilot.
Yeah.
I will say that the dean of the math department wasn't very nice about my mom dying, and I had to go back the day after her funeral to take a test.
You're like with your mom who passes away, and then you leave right away because of was it because of school?
No, I couldn't handle her dying. Like that was my runaway. You know, my dad was there. My sister was flying in. This is the weirdest story. So, we were told, my dad called me and said, look, we don't think she's going to make it through the weekend. Why don't you come in Friday and we'll have the weekend? And Wednesday night, I go to sleep and she comes to me in my dream and says, you need to come home tomorrow. You need to come home tomorrow. So I leave school. Wow. I just cut class. Yeah. Sorry for anybody. Don't cut classes. Don't cut school.
No.
But I did. For obvious reasons. Sure. And I show up at the hospital and I'm sitting there and I didn't tell my dad I was coming in, and my sister was flying in that day. And I sat there and I had about 2 to 3 hours with her and just said everything I needed to and said, you know, it's okay. You know, you can go, you can live through me and all of this stuff. And that was around 3:00. My dad showed up. I think I got there around 1, and I had that time with her.
Yeah.
And then around 3:30 or 4, my dad showed up, and then we left and did a couple of things. And at 5:20, we had gotten back to the hospital, and they said she was transitioning right then. Yeah. And I went to the doorway. I couldn't go into her room, but her bed was angled in such a way that there was a mirror that if you stood in the doorway and looked at the mirror, it was right into her face.
Oh, wow.
Not something that you want to see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I was there, and then I ran into the waiting room. And at like 5:31, my dad and the nurse came out, and I'm like, is she gone? And they said, yeah. And so, you know, they're backing me up, trying to hug me. And I'm like, don't, I'm good. I got to go though. And I got in my car and drove 2.5 hours back up to school.
Yeah.
And I just walked into my dorm. My friends were like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, she's gone. And I just went in my room and shut the door.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was a really hard time. And I felt in the intervening months, I felt bad that like I wasn't there for my sister, but I couldn't be there.
Yeah.
I was also angry at a lot of people for the situation that my mom was back into.
Okay.
And so you talk about being vulnerable. So that was a really tough time.
Sure.
So instead of graduating in 91, I actually wound up graduating in the summer of 92. So that's where the first year, second year, junior, senior comes from, because I was at school the whole time, but obviously my grades weren't great.
Yeah. Well, and understandably so.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if I think about everything that you just talked about, that's a lot. And you guys were really tight for a long time.
Oh, so tight.
Yeah. Growing up in the environment and the atmosphere that you described, you know, there's not a lot of learning about being vulnerable and how to handle situations that are complicated and kind of emotionally messy. Like, how do you walk through that?
Right.
How do you do that?
Right.
Yeah.
And there was never, I always saw my friends that lived in Manhattan Beach with the beautiful big houses,
Mhm.
with the dinner that was on the table,
Yeah.
the 9 to 5, dads that would come home, and I craved for that. I craved for normalcy. I craved for stability.
Mhm.
My sister and I always talked about this. I wanted a family and a home. That's what I've always wanted.
Yeah.
And my sisters wanted the career. And
Okay.
she wound up getting the family and the child. And I wound up getting the career.
Wow. It's totally flipped.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that
Crazy.
interesting? Do you think, though, if you think about what their normalcy was, the people
Mhm.
that you were looking at, I mean, they may have looked at you with the same kind of eyes and said, well, that's your normal. So who's to say what normal really is? And how do you know that everything that was happening in their household was normal? You know,
Yeah.
but I understand what
Agreed.
you're saying. That
And
whole,
behind every door, everybody's doors are, who
yeah,
knows what their families were truly like. I just know that, there was a lot of stability that I
yeah,
saw, that I
yeah,
craved, that I wanted, that we didn't have.
yeah. Do you feel like through your career, you have found stability? Or that you've had to work extra hard to get to a place where you feel stable? Or, hey, okay, I'm going to be really, really candid right here. Do you feel like you're still looking for stability?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that um, having the life that we've had, my mom showed me how to be very independent. And I
Mhm.
think we had talked about this before, that I don't know if she may have done me a disservice of being too independent.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, of My family is a history of bringing in stray animals, stray people. Like, we had
Mhm.
musicians living with us. We had my dad's friends living with us. We had, you know, all these people in and out of our lives.
Yeah.
My cousins lived with us for years. And to this day, my cousins are like our siblings.
Mhm.
We have, my cousin Mark is 2 days older than my sister, and they were raised as twins. And
Okay.
my cousin Tracy and my cousin Michael live with us for a little while, and so they're like a sister and brother to me.
Yeah.
Um, but I've always, I've never felt safe, and I guess to this day I'm still learning how.
Mm. Yeah.
So it 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 took a big hit in late August with my dad's passing.
Sure.
But I think that that is a daily journey of, waking up and saying, okay, I'm an adult now.
Mhm.
I'm going to take care of the little kid in me that didn't get taken care of, and I'm going to make it okay.
Right.
And so the stability of a good job, people around me, and again, I mentioned this before, there are men at Father Ryan, teachers, coaches, admin, that, and my mentors in my profession, and my
Right.
father too,
Mhm.
that have really given me a beautiful example of what a man should be,
Mhm.
and what a provider and a confidant, and the characteristics of what you should look for and trust. And it's
Yeah.
been a beautiful example. I am so in awe and blessed that those men, and watching them with their families and
Mhm.
their wives and their children and their athletes, and have the interactions with, other teachers and stuff, and just our community. It's amazing to watch.
Right.
And I'm so glad I get to actually see those role models.
Right. So you do have some stability now. But I hear you also
Yes.
saying, well, I also hear you saying that it's a choice that you have to make every day, a conscious choice to be that adult, to move through your life in a way that is productive for you and to make those choices that are Sometimes those choices are hard, but that and you feel and you trust enough in yourself and your experience that you're going to take care of yourself in the best possible way that you can.
I've had, as I look back, no choice but taking care of myself. Because as a strength coach, and as a single strength coach, first of all, I'm in a profession that's male dominated. Yes. I'm an alpha girl myself. So I've had Napoleon syndrome since I can remember. Yeah. I've always thought I was bigger and nastier than, and again, whether that was a facade, whether I really was like that, whether I had to take on those characteristics. Yeah. But, I used to beat up my sister's friends, and I used to get beat up, and it was just a really tough time growing up. Mm-hmm. But I've always been, my sister's 2.5 years older than me, and I've taken care of her since I was, 14, 15 years old. So, there's always been, and then my mom and I took care of each other, right? And I always felt responsible for making sure my mom, and whether that was right or wrong, it was what it was. She should have been taking care of me, and she did. Yeah. But we took care of each other, and there was a very big responsibility in that. When my parents got back together, I apologize. I got allergies too right now. It's just crazy with this weather. When my parents got back together, and when my mom got sick, and my dad came through big time. Mm-hmm. And I was able to see forgiveness and grace and love, and restored my faith in a lot. It allowed my dad and I to get, to be on great terms. And he was my best friend till the day he died. He was my, plus one, if you will, and stuff like that. So there was a necessity to take care of myself. If I ever needed anything, I knew I could call my dad. He was always, artists are creative, narcissistic types. Yes. I think you might know something about that because you were in the entertainment business too. Yeah. And I'm going to circle back and squirrely moment on that, because I would like to know a little bit more in depth about your experience with the music business. Okay. Well, let me ask you just real quick, because while you're still in this vein, I think that you said you wonder sometimes if your mom did you a disservice by creating that, hey, we have to do it. We have to work really hard. I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to do it. Where you sit now, do you what does your gut tell you? Do you feel like it was a disservice? At times. I would love nothing more than to be married, to have step monsters or stepchildren. I always called them, we grew up in Disney with step monsters and stepmothers and stuff like that. But I always thought I'd be a great stepmom. I always thought, I'd be a really good one. I just never found someone that could either handle my profession and the nomadic lifestyle that a coach leads. Yeah. The kind of man that I was, that I'm attracted to is either looking for a stay at home. And this is growing up. I mean, this is going through, my college experience and stuff. Sure. Either was so intimidated by the kind of people that I worked around, because I'm working with pro athletes. I'm working with college athletes. I'm working with Olympians. We're talking about the best of the best physique wise. Right. But I always thought, but if I chose you, you should be pretty honored instead of freaking out or getting pissed off at me about it. Yeah.
That's a great way to look at it. Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
Like look what I'm around, and I'm choosing you as someone that I think is amazing. Yeah. Yeah. That I want to show you off to my athletes. And I always thought of my athletes as my kids. Yes. There was never really a time you just don't, I look at even when I was in a coaching role, like these are somebody's kids that they're they're asking you to be a part of their life and their development.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah. So I would get these guys that were either, I don't want to meet your goons anymore. And I'm like, whoa, these are my kids.
Wow.
Stop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's just an intimidation situation. They're just intimidated, or insecurity, maybe. Yeah.
I'm sure that too, and I am socially awkward when I'm not in the middle of a workout or in a setting of the gym, or talking to athletes, or talking to coaches, or talking to parents about athletes. If I am very socially awkward when it comes to, and it's embarrassing, like socially awkward.
Well,
like if we were out somewhere and I met somebody that I really liked, I would be a stumbling idiot. I wouldn't know what to say. I really don't, unless it's sports related. I'm just tongue tied. It's just awkward.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think
No, I swear to you, I promise it's true.
Okay.
Been there. I got the t-shirt.
Been there, got the t-shirt.
Yeah.
I think everybody's kind of got that to a certain extent. So I don't think you're abnormal under any circumstance where that's concerned.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Anytime. But I think if everything that you're talking about, the things that you have learned through your upbringing by having the experiences that you've had, which were your normal, was your normal, are invaluable to the person that you are now.
No question.
You have right now. No.
I'm very blessed to have the background that I had, the difficulties that I had, the blessings that I've had, because all roads have led here.
Yeah.
And professionally, I am absolutely where God wants me to be. It's the happiest I've ever been. It's the healthiest I've ever been.
So good.
And being able to affect these kids, and that they want to come back, and after every break, they want to train with me. We have a college group that comes that I have former athletes from years ago that still want to stay in touch. Hey, so-and-so, I did this, or, what's going on? And when I went to Florida to see my dad, I got in touch with one of my Auburn tennis players, and we met up in Miami and went out to lunch. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, it's relationships. You're building relationships, and they're valuable relationships. And the fact that they all come back and that they want to communicate with you and stay in touch with you and stay bonded to you is a big deal. Like, impacting lives is something that I know you don't take lightly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think about your path, like we jump back into your college days, like after you left, after you graduated from Colorado, then you went on to, you did stints at Washington and Oregon as well. So
Oregon State,
sorry, difference.
That's okay. Ducks get very upset
I'm sorry.
Give it the Beavers.
Yes. But all of those things that you did culminated in such a wide array of experiences that puts you to this place. Would you ever look back and think, I'm going to end up back in Nashville? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like where my dad was, where his business was, where my parents were?
No. There was a question posed to me the other day, where do I think I'm going to be in 10 years, 5 to 10 years?
Yes.
And I was thinking about that. It's even growing up, it was a day-to-day thing. Mm-hmm. There was no longevity, except there was a period in time where I really wanted to marry, a guy and have a set of twin boys, dark hair, light eyes. I had the names picked out, and the names were ridiculous in itself.
Oh, no, it's not. I don't think that's ridiculous. Again, something.
Blaine, Hollywood, and Cameron. Blaine, Hollywood, and Cameron. It was something else. Yeah.
Okay, so you realize that if any of your athletes are watching this or listening to this, they're just going to start digging all this up and start asking you more questions about that.
Yeah.
But it's all good. I have a feeling you can handle it, and you'll put them where they need to be. Yeah.
I found that with teenagers, honesty is the best policy.
Oh, yeah.
And, if it is none of their business, it's none of their business in the nicest way possible.
Yeah.
But I think that what I've gone through is very relatable to what kids need to hear.
Yes.
And again, there's a very fine line between being professional and being honest.
Yeah.
And when kids come to me, we have a protocol. I am a resource. We have personal counseling. We have, avenues to go to. I go to their parent. You know what I'm saying? Like I am a conduit. I'm an extension
for sure
of their community to help them.
But they have to feel comfortable enough to have that ability to unload to the conduit to help them get to where they need to be. So
when I was done, when my mom passed, I was just done dancing because it was the one thing she and I had in common, and it made her super happy, and choreographed this whole dance like in front of her, like on the spot. I've had the time of my life while she was laying in bed, and just the joy that it had brought to her. And I just lost all of that. So when I graduated with my undergrad, it was arts, humanities, and social sciences with a minor in dance.
Okay.
I was on the dance team in college. So, we had, and I love to weight train. We were considered with band, an extension of band.
So not really athletes, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is nothing further from the truth. It's so far from the truth.
Completely. And, my profession, my name can be very polarizing. It depends on the groups that you're asking about. I'm either someone who has worn the test of time and has proved all my naysayers wrong.
Yeah.
Or I can't believe she's still there. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. Didn't have the easiest time in my profession either. Yeah. As a dancer, there is a very big school of thought. Again, this is in the 90s, 80s, and not 80s, excuse me, in the 90s, where I was one of 12 female strength coaches in the nation. I was one of 9 that worked with football. I was 5'3" and weighed nothing. And, I wasn't an athlete. So when I decided that I wanted to be a strength coach, and I walk into CU in Boulder after teaching a plyometrics and conditioning course as a volunteer with the club sports at Colorado.
Okay.
After 6 months, we didn't have all the science that we had today. So it was a lot of reading, trial and error, and using these kids as guinea pigs. And but after, things that were working, I was like, all right, this is something that I really want to do. So I go into the Dow Ward Athletic Center at CU in Boulder, and I'm like, it was this guy's first year. His name is Doc Crease.
Okay.
He's a giant in the field. This big Southern man can motivate a corpse. His big old mustache with his Southern drawl, big barrel chest. And he threw me out of the weight room like for days. And I just kept coming back because it just started getting me more and more pissed off that he was saying no.
Yeah.
And so here's something that I could, turn around and be like, all right, I want to be a part of this. And at the summer, I was doing data entry for my family's electronics company.
Right.
And I had noticed all the days that I had gone in there, and he was like, why are you here? Like, get out. Like, you're not an athlete. You don't weigh anything. You don't know what we do here. And I was like, look, I've weight trained. And I'll get back to that part, but I was like, I finally realized what I could do. And I said, I'm going to computerize your entire file system of workout. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, I noticed you have boxes and boxes of your workouts that you're writing up like fractions.
That's handwriting. Yeah.
Yes. I said, there are boxes of them. I said, I'll put it all on computer for you. And this was 92 at the time. And
it's new.
Again, Yeah, it's not like everyone's got a laptop during this time.
Yeah.
This was back in the day. And he kind of looked at me and I was like, I will do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're not going to pay you. And I'm like, I'll get a part-time job. So I had a couple of different part-time jobs. And for 8 hours a day, he was like, you know what? I'll make you a deal. Keep your eyes open and your mouth shut. You're going to have a book with you. You're going to write down everything you hear. Every Friday, we're going to have question and answers. And the first time you ask me something stupid, you're done.
Okay.
And I was like, fine, bring it.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Here's your opportunity.
Right.
So like you created your opportunity.
Yeah, I did. I did because
that.
he had never had a graduate assistant before, let alone a female.
Yeah. But just like pause for a second, because I think that's really, really brilliant. And I think that's something that's pretty invaluable that people could hear, that where there's not an obvious opportunity, but you feel so much passion and so much drive for something that you create your opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah, you did it. Okay. Prove them wrong. Let's go. Do it. Yeah. Okay. So the data entry, computerizing his workouts, obviously had some traction. Must have worked.
It did. It did. I spent 8 hours a day with 3-ounce Dixie cups, making protein shakes, painted bumpers. He would just yell at me and scream bloody murder and just everything I did. It was like on high. But he loved the fact that my dad was in the music business, and my dad did get on the sidelines before I did, which is still a sore point.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. But that brought a really great bonding thing for my dad and I, because sports was always something, that we both loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
But 6 months after I started there, he certified me. I wrote a test for a book that he had written that he claimed, and he certified me and gave me my first team. And I was with him till 94.
Okay.
And then I had two choices. I could go to the sports academy in Daphne, Alabama, or Northern Colorado to finish my degree. I had taken a bunch of coursework for kinesiology, but I needed more of the practical application than the research, because I'm a practical kind of girl. So
absolutely.
And so, he called up another couple of my mentors, which was Marty English and Coach Joe Glenn, who was the football coach. And he was like, hey, I got this little thing. She weighs nothing. She doesn't look like much, but she's the real deal if you give her a shot.
Okay.
And again, I'm not so sure that I liked that lead up.
Yeah.
But he was preparing me for what I had to deal with at the time. And he tried to smooth over those edges. And my first semester, they wouldn't let me touch the juniors and seniors at Northern Colorado. They gave me the freshmen and the sophomores.
Okay.
And after the semester, they handed the whole team over to me.
Oh, how amazing.
Yeah. And then I went through the summer with them in 95. And the Denver Broncos were doing their camp up in Greeley. And I got to be around the strength and conditioning, the Denver Broncos. So I got to see what they were doing, which was amazing to me. Coach Vern was just such an asset. And, they saw what I was doing. And because I had all these, guys, it was like a no-brainer to just kind of observe what they were doing. And then I wanted to be full-time, and I knew I couldn't do it there.
Okay.
But again, I go back to my Napoleon complex and wanting to dominate the world, and just in a whole profession that said I didn't belong there. Here is my thought process. As a dancer, it's movement. It gets broken down into movement science. It's center of gravity. It's center of balance, coordination. It's changing and being agile and going in different directions. And isn't that what sport is?
It is.
Yeah.
You're right.
If you look at a football game and you look at a wide receiver, that is poetry in motion. A sprinter,
Yeah.
poetry in motion.
Yes.
The contact and the clashes like on the O-line, or watch a basketball player run down the court
Yeah.
and, dunk, or tennis.
Yes.
It's all movement. It's all poetry in motion, if you
Yeah.
ask me. And because I understood how to change levels and change balance, and then the science behind it,
Yeah.
physiology, biology, physics, it gave me a really different viewpoint. And
Yeah.
I thought it was just as valuable. And I found coaches that were like-minded. And
Yes.
I ran into a lot of coaches that didn't. The polarizing, I go back to that polarizing character for me, as far as whether I should have ever even attempted this profession or not.
Mm-hmm.
You asked me once if we had gone out to California, and my life would have been on a whole different trajectory.
Yeah. Oh,
I would
sure.
not be here if we didn't stay in Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I realized that I wanted to continue learning. And at the Air Force Academy, Coach Alan Hedrick, the third one of my mentors, was doing some creative work with water logs and kegs and dumbbell work. And
Okay.
he was a visionary. So I volunteered for about 5 or 6 months there. And then I got my first full-time job in Corvallis. And then 6 months there, I landed the opportunity of University of Washington and stayed there for 3 years.
That's great. I
So
think you brought up a really interesting point too about finding the like-minded people. And when you find that group of like-minded people, how much fulfillment that brings and what that does to boost you and your opportunities.
yeah,
And then what that does to unfolding those opportunities and creating more for yourself.
yeah. I had a lot of detractors, but there were my heroes also.
Yeah.
There were, they were visions of men that I could look up to and that saw value in what I could bring to the table.
Yeah.
And, when you find someone that believes in you, because I hadn't had that. My dad's always believed in me, and I get that.
Sure.
But my mom believed in me. She was my spine. And when she died in 91, 92, 93, it wasn't until I found Doc and realized, okay, this guy's going to give me some tough love that I've never, been through the ringer. But the challenges that he put in front of me were the challenges that I grew up with, every obstacle he would put in front of me was to see, how hard I wanted to climb over it or through it or under it or whatever to get around it or to get through it. And it made me.
Yeah, absolutely. It shaped who you were. But also another thing to think about is those detractors you talked about, the ones that were like doing this and like butting up against you and were saying, no, like you can't do this. That's impossible. All those messages that they send, whether it's verbal or nonverbal. I always tell my kids, like, those are opportunities that are pretty crappy for you. The experience is not amazing, but it teaches you what you want and what you don't want. You get really clear about what direction you need to go when you have those crappy experiences.
Yep.
So that also was a blessing and a gift for you, those detractors, because that helped probably get you very, very clear about not only kicking in your, hey, let me show you kind of mentality, which I think all of A-type people probably have a lot of. I've seen that all through your talk here. But also those detractors show you just what you're capable of, where you want to go and where you don't want to go.
Yeah.
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 So 3 years at Washington, which is awesome.
And I'll tell you, And while I was at Washington, I also worked with the 75th Ranger Regiment. That was that was life-changing for me. But
Yeah.
I grew more in the 3 years at Washington and some of the adversity that I had to deal with there.
Mm-hmm.
And I really became a good strength coach there.
Okay.
Despite some people and because of some others.
Oh, I love that. Despite some people, but because of some others. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's life, really.
Yep.
Gosh.
Yeah. I mean, to this day, and I know I had shared with you this before, but coaches that I was supposed to look up to and, basically saying that I didn't belong there or playing
Mhm.
an April Fool joke on me where I had
Right.
gotten a phone call that said I had passed a certification when in fact I didn't. And after I had been on the highest of highs and calling everybody who had ever believed in me and was celebrating and looking up to the heavens, and not to be dramatic and saying, Mom, we made it,
Yeah.
to have them call back, 3 hours later and say April Fool,
Yeah.
took me to the lowest of lows. And what I realized during that experience is how sad you must be in your situation if
Mhm.
you're putting so much time into trying to create problems for others.
Yeah. Amen.
And it made me realize who I didn't want to be and who I would never want to be or act like,
Yeah.
you
Clear.
know,
Crystal clear for you.
Bristol.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it was a very valuable lesson. To this
Mhm.
day, Rick Hughley, who was my big boss, who hired me, we're still very close. And he was amazing. He taught me a lot. We went through the ringer together, him and I.
Okay.
And it was the most growth. And then 5 years at Auburn,
Mhm.
I had some trepidation about being afraid of not measuring up
Mhm.
because of that mentality of that group of detractors.
Yeah.
But once I felt that I was on safe ground, like I wasn't going to get fired right away if I made a mistake, or I wasn't
Mhm.
going to be let go, or like there was some grace there and growing pains and things like that, I really got even better.
Yeah.
And I loved my time at Auburn. Um, Coach PK and Coach Yoxel, I mean, they were great bosses to have. And I left I left college coaching because I wanted to get married and have a family, and my dad lived in Nashville,
Mhm.
and I thought I could get a college job here, and that wound up not working out. And so I went to the private sector for 14 years and did corporate wellness and started working with high school kids and
Yeah.
started looking for athletes and realizing during that time, okay, my path is working with athletes. My path is working with younger kids.
Yes.
I had applied for almost 80 college jobs over 10 years and was just too quote unquote overqualified all the time.
Oh, wow.
Couldn't even get my foot back in the door.
Wow.
And it was God's path that led me to working with high school kids, to realizing that there was a difference, that I couldn't just treat them like college kids. And that led me back into learning about long-term athletic development
Right.
and what a difference the 14 to 18-year-old goes through.
For sure. And that grew you again in another
Yeah.
level and with
Third
another
life.
dimension.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the third
And
life. Mhm.
when I left when I left that private sports training company that I worked with, and I had applied to Father Ryan, I went and talked to the athletic director, Dr. Delauda, at the time, and said, even if you don't hire me, let me make sure that you have what you're looking for these athletes.
Right.
And we had such an amazing meeting. And then they interviewed me, and it's been the biggest blessing. All roads have led me here.
Yeah.
I don't take that for granted. I don't take it lightly.
No, not at all. I don't think anybody that's around you would even believe that that's a possibility. Yeah. No. I had a conversation with a friend earlier today about why things don't happen faster for us when we think, I really need to do this. I really have the desire to do this. I really want to be this. But these are my goals, X, Y, and Z. And why we work so hard, put so much elbow grease into it to getting to that goal. And it feels like we're kind of stuck or we're stalled out. And we're like, why am I having to have this experience to be able to get to this goal? And she made a really great point. She's like, sometimes those pauses and those spaces are for our protection and to give us the space to find where we really need to be and where we really are valued the most and are where it's important for us to make an impact and where it's important for us to really, really live our lives and give our gift. I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
It's really neat.
Yeah. 3 lifetimes to get you to this point where you are at a place where you're really gifting so much to so many people at that developmental age where it's really, really beneficial. Yeah.
I don't want to, when I say 3 lifetimes, I don't want anyone to think that, oh, I'm thinking like out here. It's just different paths. Like, I was on this highway and I exited off onto this highway and now I'm on this highway. And
yeah, no, wouldn't take it like that at all. I think we all have these different segments. So, okay, we could call it seasons. You've had 3 different seasons. Yeah, we'll call it 3 seasons. Sure. But it's just the development of your soul. It's your soul goals. It's uncovering all those different places and those different trajectories that are really important for all of us to have. And I think the gift of us being in our the gift of us being in our 50s. Here, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it louder. The gift of us being in our 50s.
Sorry. Sorry.
Choking on it. Well, I mean, we get perspective and we get to look back at those seasons of our life and go, all right, what can I do now to impact people in a way that, I mean, they're going to make mistakes just like I did. And like if you think about my kids, I can't do it for them. Like they got to walk that path. And like the kids that you work with every day, you can't do it for them. They have to make a choice. But what a really great piece you are, as you called yourself a conduit earlier. I love that. Thanks. What a great conduit you are.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I've had a great conversation with you today. This is, as always,
I'm going to interject.
Please.
The music business for you.
Oh, we didn't go.
Let's go.
Well, what do you want to know? I'm an open
your
book.
Path. Your season.
My season started when I was 8 years old, singing into a hairbrush, coal miner's daughter in the basement of our house. It's just crazy. 8 years old. Yeah, that's been a long time ago. Ended up in Nashville via the way of Branson, Missouri, by the way. I was a singer in Branson at Silver Dollar City. Yeah. Shout out SDC Branson Mo.
My dad's really close friend, Uncle Tony Orlando, has got a place in Branson.
Yes, yeah. Tony Orlando was there. Yeah, he was there before I moved to Nashville. Yes. So was Andy Williams. We had this Japanese fiddle player named Shoji Tabuchi. That's a crazy name. Look him up sometime. Shoji Tabuchi. Yeah, everybody. Yeah. Ended up in Nashville to go to college, did studio work when I was here. Ended up going into treatment for my issues that I had, which was a godsend for me when I moved to a larger city. And I ended up leaving the music industry altogether. But I worked vicariously through a number of artists in the music industry, personal training, coaching in that capacity. So I still was involved in it, which was great because I do love music. And finding my voice in a much different direction now through podcasting has been really, really fulfilling and a really great gift. And I look at everything that I've done in the music business and I'm like, wow, I had some really great opportunities and I've met some really cool people and I've been able to be around some really cool people. Also had some really low points too, but why wouldn't be where I'm at? And again, I go back to the gift of us being the age that we are and the seasons that we've experienced. It's perspective,
Yeah.
you know? And you got to give, I think the hardest thing probably, and you can attest to this, if you talk to your teenagers, like in their workouts, the hardest part is getting started. And once you get started, it's like, it's the making the choice. And maybe it's making the choice.
Yeah. And I think everything you say goes back to choosing.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Making choices we don't always make the right ones. But I also, again, had a conversation last week with another friend about, she was talking about making choices and what if I make the wrong choice? And she's probably 15 years younger than me, much different season of her life with raising children, much younger than mine. And I said, like you can't regret the choices that you make with the information that you have at the time.
Yeah.
You just do the best and trust that you're doing the best that you can when you do it. And you make that choice and you go boldly forward and say, okay, I am on the right path. I'm doing something ethically correct for myself and for people that I impact. So you're being ethically responsible about your choices, which is really what we're here to do. And you're doing the best that you can. So cut yourself some slack and have some grace. Yeah. And let those detracting situations teach you what you will do and what you won't do.
Very much so. And I wouldn't change a thing. I am extraordinarily blessed. You can be a victim or you can realize that has just made your armor that much stronger and you can rise above it and you have more to offer as far as advice and life experience and guidance, and just say, hey, these are the choices, anytime an athlete comes to me and says, I'm having this problem, my thing to them is we sit down and I grab a whiteboard out and we go pros and we go cons.
Oh, I love it.
And there's no judgment on either one because that's not my place. That is for me to just show them the pros and cons of the situation that they're dealing with. And then every time is take this sheet, talk it over with your parents.
Yeah.
Look at it, study it, add anything else you want to it, and then go talk about it.
Yeah. Amen.
And then tell me what you think. Tell me what you decided. Because, I always like to hear the end result.
Yeah. But I think too, what the cool thing that you just said is you're giving them the ability to be non-judgmental and in a place of curiosity, if you will.
Yeah.
Just stay curious about it. Like, I know that this is a pro and this is a con for me right now. That may switch tomorrow.
Right.
But don't put judgment on one thing or the other. They just are what they are. And then your gut, right? And you're going to know what's the right path for you. And you got to just be in trust with that choice. It's hard.
It is.
It's really hard. But it's fulfilling when you can do it. So this concludes Kylie and Dawn's TED Talk. We hope that you all have learned a lot. We'll circle back to you next week with our next installment of TED Talk number 2.
Seriously. That's funny.
Or TED Talk number 4, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an inside joke. Hey, but before I let you go, though, I want to do some rapid fire questions because I just think they're fun. Yeah, it just shows a whole different personality side for you. So let's get a little lighthearted here.
Let's go.
All righty. Number 1, what word do you have a hard time pronouncing?
The number 4.
Wait, I'm going to say it.
Yep.
The number 4.
Yep.
That's Brooklyn, baby.
Yep. Downward dog. But the number, that's the number. And it will never not be funny with the athletes.
Yes. You're counting all day long.
Oh, they ask me things or like we do a stretch down and I'm like, all right, let's go with the double D. And they're like, what is that, Coach K? And I'm like, Downward dog. All right, let's go. And I just look at them and they all die. I'm like, will this never not be funny? And they're like, no.
No.
And I'm like, fly your freak flag. I'm going to fly my freak flag. You fly yours. You want to sit there and laugh at me? Go ahead. I'm really okay with it at this point.
I love it. Look, I'm laughing. I'm laughing with you.
Yeah. It's that number. It just four. I look silly when I try to actually say four.
Yeah, your mouth, like you're showing your teeth, like e. It's perfect. All right. Question number 2. What were you afraid of as a child?
Growing up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Growing up in what capacity? Meaning like
getting older, losing my parents, getting divorced, just losing that childness, that protection that at some point I must have felt.
Yeah.
But that anxiety and panic has stayed with me. And it's a daily lesson on what now. Like I wake up, I'm going to decide if I'm anxious or panicked that day to just deal with it and, be productive and continue on. But I was really afraid of that. And now I'm in the middle of it.
Well, you're slaying it. I'm just going to tell you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Like that.
All right. Question number 3. What is your favorite type of music or maybe even your favorite song?
Being that my father was in the music business, anywhere between the 60s and like 95, 2000. I'm not a very big fan, the kids will tell you, like of today's rap music.
Yeah.
There is some that I like. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like classical. I like country. But I don't want to say force them to. Sometimes I don't give them a choice. I call it music education because I'm about educating.
Yes.
So I do a lot of music education with them between the 60s and the late 90s. And because without our old school rap, they don't have theirs today.
Amen. That's so true. Do you, gosh, doggone it. It just escaped me. If it comes back, I'll squirrel moment back to you. I was thinking
they don't know Motown.
No, they don't. Oh, that's so sad.
How do you not know Luther Vandross? And how do you not know the Shirelles and the Temptations? And I mean, I get it, but
yeah.
So I try. I play music trivia with them for core class.
Oh, like you're giving them like if you can name this, I'll take this much time off of your.
At the end of this, you can either do A, or if you guess it, you can do B. And I give them 3 guesses, whether it's the genre, whether it's the artist, whether it's the name of the song. Now, there are some kids whose parents have really schooled them up well on classic rock and 60s and 70s. But there's quite a few that we wind up doing a really long plank or a lot of sit-ups because they can't remember. But they learn.
Yes. And you're like you said earlier, you're in education. Yeah, it's a vital block. All right.
Absolutely.
Question number 4. What is one of your nicknames?
I mean, Coach K would have to be the biggest one because a lot of kids actually think my name is K-A-Y.
Oh, wow.
I think I might have told you one before that I'm not going to mention now.
Okay.
I mean, I've been called a lot of things. I've had a lot of nicknames depending on if if the athletes are in a bad mood or if I push them where they're that fight or flight moment. I'm sure there are, names that come out.
Yes.
We'll just leave it at that.
Do you know that when I was first personal training at the Y, I had my first ever client. I was so excited, newly certified, done all this stuff through my college education. I'm like, yeah, let's go. I think it lasted for 2 weeks. This client fired me because she said that I reminded her of her mother and that I was like bossing her around like her mother. And I was like mortified. I'm like, I'm just telling you what exercise we're going to do and what it's helping. And yeah.
Right. And I guarantee if you were a guy, and I know we talked about this before, but if you were a guy doing that, you would be hard and you would be stern and you would be,
all the things.
So great and motivating. And instead of just being, bossy and witchy.
Right. Yeah. All the words.
All the words.
All right. Last question for you. What is the silliest work mistake that you have ever made?
I make them daily.
Okay.
I make them daily.
So if we had your kids in front of you right now, they could probably pick out stuff, but yeah.
I'm going to pick the most recent one, which was the day I came back after my dad's funeral. Obviously, you're kind of still in a fog.
Yeah.
And my first day back, I'd been there since like 8:00 in the morning. And by like 1 PM after my class, it's about 12:40. And one of the kids looks at me and goes, Coach K, your pants are on inside out, right? And I just looked down and I was like, I'm glad to get up. So I'm glad I got up. So my shorts were inside out and backwards. Yeah.
No one told you for like 5 hours?
No. I had the seams on the side. I had the seams in the front. I had the tag in the back. No, nobody was saying anything to me. I just thought I won the day by being there and being present. So yeah, I just had to laugh. And I did. I laughed a lot. I was just like, that is exactly what I needed. Yes, they are inside out. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing this with me. I appreciate it. W on the day for the win. Yes. For being here today.
Well, and as we wrap up, I'm just going to say W on the talk today. This is amazing. I'm so glad that we are able to sit down and have another great conversation with each other about all things vulnerable and all things that are intimately you, that make you up, right? And the experiences that you've had, because like you've said, you wouldn't change them.
Well, it's not like there are people to open up to, like that kind of, vulnerability and that kind of depth. Those are not things that I share. So the fact that we were able to try is get open that's pretty big time.
Well, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank
you for giving me a safe space to do it.
Oh, you're so sweet. And I'm not going to tell you how many people listen to this every week. So I'll tell you about it after it's aired. It's going to be great. But I really appreciate your vulnerability. All seriousness right here. I really do appreciate your vulnerability, your openness, talking about your process and giving so much vital information about your path. I think that's how we learn. That's how we evolve. And that's how we grow. And that's how we ultimately connect with other people. It's just being real. And it's hard for a lot of people to do, but you did amazing.
It's what gives me the basis in which I can help guide these kids, because it comes from a place of honesty, and kids respect honesty.
Yes, they do. Yeah. All day. They can see right through it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. They smell fear. They're like dogs.
Yeah. Yes. They'll go after it. Well, gosh, Coach K, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you for letting me help raise your kids.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. Oh,
thank you to all the parents out there that have let me be a part of your athletes and your kids' life and growing good humans experiment. So thank you for entrusting me.
Yeah. Well, honored to have you be in their life. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have you a wonderful rest of your week. Okay.
You too. And hopefully it'll not be as icy.
Oh, right. Yeah. We're going to thaw out. We're looking forward to spring right here. Let's go.
Yes.
Yes. Have a great rest of your day, Kylie.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. If you have an idea for an interview or you would like to share your own story, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message at dawn@thesoulgoals.com. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love for you to leave a review and to consider following and subscribing to the show. With weekly releases, there is always another interesting story to be heard. I do hope that today's guests and their words have helped to bring some extra light to your day and encouraged you to find a deeper space of your very own soul goals. Until next time, friends, remember that everyone has a story, and every story matters.